start the recording here, and then yeah, it'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Cool.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming.
All right.
Objective
Just be putting out some spam shots, right? We just want to, be shooting. Just to give myself a quick reminder, I'm just going to take a look at our notes real quick. So main points, number 1 was positioning, 2 awareness, then target priority, 4 ult usage, 5 ability usage. So we did best with those 2, or at least they were the least important. All right, so then we didn't. All right, so I'm just, I'll glance back at those once in a while, see like if we talked about things or not, if I need to go in depth on them. So here we just kind of paused randomly when we could just be shooting at the shield. So just, spam shooting. Don't take random pauses when it's not necessary. All right, so that's unfortunate that Reinhardt walked into you guys, like kind of it's unfortunate that Reinhardt walked into that room there, so that kind of put us at an advantage to start off here, and then here we maybe engaged a little bit too early because
I was thinking that as soon as I died. Like, if they dropped a point, then the bat probably would have stayed up there, and I would have had a really good angle on all of them.
Exactly, right? So, that we just engaged that a little bit too early, whereas we could have probably waited a little bit longer and then just got on their back line without having them getting melted, right? Because going 1-for-1 there isn't the best decision. So, us and Reinhardt just didn't make the best decisions there, and then therefore we kind of lost that. Or at least I'm assuming we're going to lose that. Oh, we got 2 picks back, so possibly winnable. Make sure we're using a roll while we're walking back. So it looks like McCree in general, last time we went over like Widow, Tracer, McCree, so we only went over like a bit of McCree, right? We didn't go super in depth. But just in general, we use roll once there, and then we proceed to not use it at all the rest of the way back. It's a 6-second cooldown. You're going to be getting that thing pretty frequently. And so, like, by the time you get back to the fight, you'll have it again. And then even, let's say it's on a couple seconds on the cooldown by the time we get back to the fight, honestly, it's not a super important cooldown to where, like, you need it as the fight is, like, as you're in the fight. So just using it to get back to the fight faster is something you want to be doing. So just as you're walking back, use it for mobility.
Okay.
Nice flash. Seeing a lot of right clicks happening. Like just almost the majority so far has been right clicks, whereas quite honestly, right clicks are gonna be happening like sub 10% of the time, like roughly on how much you're going to be using them. Yet we're using them a lot, and the reason being is that left click's just going to be a lot more consistent in its damage output, and you're going to be able to be one more precise with your shots, 2 basically manage your ammo a lot better. So specifically, like if we're right clicking into a flashbang, you're doing basically the same amount of damage as it like with 2 headshots that an entire right click is doing, except for now you have 4 ammo left and you're not having to reload, which saves you extra time. So it's going to be more time efficient, ammo efficient. It's going to be more accurate. It's going to have more range on it. Yet we're kind of right-clicking more than we're left-clicking at the moment. Nice high noon there. Really good, decent pick.
Now, hold on.
Oh, and there we just kind of looked like we got aggressive for not a big reason. So, we didn't necessarily have to run straight on the point here. Really, we could have dueled the Baptiste. In fact, Baptiste dies here in a moment, right? But we kind of keep walking onto the open on the point, which puts us in a not so great position. Then we died, right? So maybe we could have just dueled the Baptiste versus running out in the open and dying, right? Yeah.
Ever get that feeling of deja vu?
Objective lost. New Defense point. Objective B.
See through the darkness. Keep your eyes.
Okay, so now we're starting to see, a little bit of the positioning stuff come into play, right? So positioning here, just a little bit too out in the open. So first off, we're not paying attention to the Widowmaker, so that kind of gets a little bit into awareness, right? So just a combination of things here. So we're not paying attention to Widowmaker, right? Whereas Widow's top left, which is a pretty common place for her to be, right? Like here, you have like if they're on a Widowmaker, right, we have two main places where she's probably going to be, either top left or top right. And then if she's not top left or top right, she's probably bottom left or bottom right, right? She's not going to be on this right side because that wouldn't really do very much for her. That's not going to be very valuable. She's not going to be underneath. She's not, going to be in their spawn. She's not going to be on point. She's going to be one of these areas, down, up, right? Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Us not paying attention to where she's at is just an awareness thing. This is kind of gets into the same thing we talked about at the very beginning before I started recording, was just paying attention to Doomfist, right? Like when team composition dictates playstyle, when they are on a different team composition, we worry about different things, right? When they are on a Doomfist or a Tracer or a Genji, we're worrying about our flanks, right? We're looking left, we're looking right, we're going to be making sure we're paying attention to them and we're listening and we're watching for the flanks. Whereas, double sniper, what they're on right now, I mean, they're not going to be going on your flanks too often, right? How often are Widow or Hanzo really going to be going right and left in comparison to like a Doomfist, Doomfist Tracer Genji, right? Not going to
true.
happen nearly as often. Whereas in the difference now is that now we're going to need to make sure we're paying a lot more close attention to our positioning and making sure we're using cover properly, making sure we're not walking out the open so that we don't get one tapped, right? So team composition dictates play style. Make sure we're paying attention to where Widowmaker is positioned. Besides that, good job with the target priority because we are focusing. That was what we had listed as number 3, and here we are going for their backline. Whereas the first point maybe is slightly questionable because we spent a lot of time on Reinhardt, but I don't think it was too terrible just because he was in the front, and we wasn't a whole lot we could do besides that. So far it's looking better than it previously was. But then also on top of that, let's look at our positioning here. This is fine if Widow's not on the left. If Widow's not on the left, this is fine because then we can just get back to our team super easily. But because Widow's on the left, becomes terrible for us. On top of that, when we're running away, we drop into them, whereas we just roll backwards or drop this way. Well, now look at the line of sight that leaves us with. That gets us out of Widow line of sight. That gets us out a lot of that line of sight, right? Just using cover properly. So we kind of run further in rather than running back when we're trying to get out and get out of line of sight of the Widowmaker. So that kind of kills us too, right? So just a couple micro mistakes or that kind of added up to a big mistake.
Let's start
Yeah.
over at the beginning. See that which is unseen.
Okay. Alright, so we swap over to the Widowmaker here. They're on Widow 2. When we're on the Widow v Widow, just be careful about taking predictable angles, especially when it's snipers. Like even if we're talking about Hanzo 2, we want to make sure that we're taking unpredictable angles where they're not expecting. Like basically 75% of duels and with snipers, especially Widowmaker, right, is won by seeing the other person first, right? So if you see them first, the enemy Widowmaker first, you have like a 75% chance of winning that unless you just whiff your shots, right? So that means that we want to be unpredictable with our positioning, not just standing in like the most obvious spot, which like, for the enemy Widowmaker, right, where are the most obvious spots for us to be? Probably here.
Where I am?
Top, that's probably like the number 1 spot right here. Bottom left, maybe like over here, and then sitting up top here if they're if we're holding spawn closer, right, and then maybe on point, right? So that's kind of like the 4 spots. Point, this would be fine if you went here because you do have a shield, which will put you at an advantage, so there'd be no issue with that. But we might want to be more predictable with it. Now last time, what maps did we go over?
Dorado.
Dorado. Okay.
And
Just making sure,
What else?
because I went over this recently with somebody else, and I was just making sure it wasn't you.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Was
no, it
just
wasn't.
some sneaky hidey spots that are really cool for this map that you can use. First off, this little ledge right here, you can stand on this, and this can allow you to like, let's say Widowmaker goes to the top left spot, right? We can actually see that top left spot, I believe, from sitting on this angle. We can actually get, like, basically be able to, if she went top left, we'd be able to snipe her from here, or if she went top right, we'd be able to snipe her from here. We can also just peek over, and if anyone's coming on this flank angle, and we can see them and snipe them. So this is a cool spot. Now, of course, you're not gonna want to go to this like every single time, because that becomes predictable, right? You want to kind of mix up where you're standing. So like, we're not gonna want to, if we're starting off up here, we're not going to want to be here for the next 5 fights. We want to mix it up. Be here, go down, go left, go right, right? We're just going to want to be, mixing it up. So maybe we can do this like every couple of times. You can also stand on this little thing, this little ledge as well. So this can actually put you out of the line of sight of people coming left and do a very similar thing. So we can peek to the side while also being out of the line of sight. So we can kind of catch people off guard with those. Also, this one would not be good on Widowmaker, but on other characters like McCree, I often do this. Is you can actually you can hop up here from this high ground to this one, and then you
Yeah,
can hop from
yeah.
here to up here, and then you can hide in this little corner over here, which can allow you to catch again flankers off guard and just get you an easy pick, right? Just there's 3 different options to maybe not just be staring down the lane, and then keep in mind as well that, again, team composition dictates playstyle. We don't have to go for the obscure angles if they're not on double sniper. If they're on on a composition that can't contest us from far ranges, then we want to take wide angles where we can see as much as possible. So in fact, this spot would then become the best spot to be in if they're not running double sniper, right? Whereas since they are running double sniper, this becomes the worst spot to be in, because it's predictable. But if they're on, like, I don't know, Doomfist and Genji or Mei and Reaper or something like that, things that can't contest you at a range, then you want the wide angles where you can see as much as possible, right?
Okay.
Allez, montre-toi.
Okay, so now they are on a soldier instead of a Widowmaker, so this becomes slightly different. We have less to worry about with the contesting, though we can still assume it. There's a good chance soldier comes left side, so we just watch out for that.
I thought she was still in Widow at this point, too.
Yeah, so in that case, getting to that point, that would just be making sure we're pressing tab frequently. It's usually a
Yeah.
good habit to get into, to press tab in between every single fight, because that's going to alert you to team composition swaps. So like when they swap characters, when we swap characters, remembering again, team composition dictates playstyle. So knowing what characters both teams are on is pretty important to know. And then on top of that, that can also let us know what ultimates our team has, and then who's dead and alive. And then, on top of that, we can, when you get really advanced with it, you can guess what ultimates they have. But, that's just a good habit to get into, so that we can tell if they swap the soldier or not, right? And that way we swap up our playstyle, because since they're not on a Widow. Oh, very nice. Good headshot. Let's watch. We dropped from high ground here. I think it's because Hanzo's shooting at us. Probably not needing to drop from high ground, because it probably wasn't super necessary that we do that. When we could have just like maybe walked around to the left side or used the corner as cover, right? But we drop anyways. I think it was accidental. So just make sure we're not accidentally dropping. I think that was maybe something we talked about last time too.
Yeah,
Right?
it was, yeah.
Right. Just making sure we're not accidentally dropping from high ground. We grapple back up. We're we're kind of being shot at from 2 different angles, so paying attention to, again, the other people. So this comes in at awareness, is that this is literally the exact same thing we talked about with the Widowmaker, is that where this would be a completely fine position to be in if there's not a soldier on your left, right? But because there's a soldier on your left, we can no longer take this spot, because where the heck are you going to run to get behind cover? There's no longer any cover here, right? And then therefore you'd probably be better off just like sitting here on the low ground, right? Sitting somewhere over here, right? That way you just have cover you can use and team support you can use. If you want to, you can duel the soldier, and then once you get the soldier, then you can retake the high ground. But we need to pay attention to team compositions, to where they're at, and then therefore awareness is being a big thing here, where we're just not paying attention to where they're at, and then therefore making mistakes and dying. Right?
Yeah.
Usually, make sure we're it's tiny little thing, but make sure we're swapping before we're respawning, that way we're not wasting like an extra second.
Right.
Right clicks, too many of them. That was way outside of range of where right clicks applicable, and then as a result, we missed most of those shots. Yeah, I've just gotta tell you, man, I've never seen someone right click that much. So right clicks are happening like 80% of the time when it should be like 5 to 10% of the time, right? Not
Okay.
You're gonna want to be left clicking much more often. Getting used to left clicking, it's gonna be much better off for you. Just go and watch any Cree player out there, right? You're probably not gonna see them right clicking a ton.
No.
Alright.
One shot.
Ready for battle.
One kill.
Alright, right clicking does have its specific instances where it is useful. Like particularly, like we could say, like when you're coming at some people's head hitboxes are really hard to hit from behind or the side. So if you're trying to, like, you can't headshot people, if you're looking at them from behind or the side sometimes. So on those characters, you can, if you like get a flash on or something like that, you can right click them in that case, right? Or you can right click if it's like an unexpected flashbangs, which is kind of, someone sneaks up behind you and you flashbang them, or it's just a kind of rushed flashbang, you can right click. But if you're like fully planning it, it should become very easy to just kind of line up the headshots, because you can already be pre-aiming it. And then on top of that, like if you're coming from the front, you always left click the headshot, and then you can right click if you're like trying to melt down some shields sometimes, but not it's not gonna be often that you're using your right click. Alright, so
Okay.
here on Widowmaker, usually an unexpected thing that usually can catch some Widowmakers off guard is to go for an early grapple. You can go for the top left here and just grapple straight up. You can from here see an angle onto that high ground. So if you're
Oh,
expecting
nice.
so if you're expecting an enemy Widow, this can get you an early pick on her by getting that unexpected fast grapple, because she's gonna be probably having her crosshairs aimed, like she's gonna be looking to back bottom left, bottom right. She's not gonna be pre-aiming up at the top here, whereas you are gonna be pre-aiming at that high ground, right? So you have that initial
Yeah.
surprise advantage.
See through the dragon's eyes.
Alright, so here we hear that they have a Widowmaker. We see her shooting again, just to get that surprise pick. Unless we get a perfectly lined up shot, I would probably make Widowmaker our first priority here. Usually when it's in a Widow v Widow or a sniper duel or whatever, the enemy sniper is going to be your main priority, because that if you basically you're each other's worst nightmare, like you both counter each other. If you get her out of the way, then you have free reign. But if you don't, then you're going to be kind of limited to having, not being able to be out in the open, to having limited lines of sights. Whereas, like, let's say we take out the Widowmaker, now we can just take the high ground, right, above us. So we probably want to focus her first, and by revealing the fact that we're on a Widowmaker and where we are, that's going to drastically reduce the chances of us getting her, because now we're showing her, okay, we're bottom left, we're bottom right from her perspective. We're we're on Widowmaker, whereas before she might not have pressed tab, she might not have been paying attention, and she most certainly didn't know where you were. But this kind of reveals our position, reveals that we're on Widowmaker, and then we lose our advantage.
She kills me for it too. Damn.
Yep. So we'll see that here. It's because now she's oh, yep, and she expects that. So being on it here, we have 3 different options. We can peek bottom left, we can peek bottom right, we can grapple up to the high ground, we can do a fake grapple maybe, where we, like, I don't know, like, if I think pretty sure she can hear us from there, maybe, so we can maybe do a grapple and then just stay on the ground, which, like, so grapple into a wall or something like that and stay on the ground, and then sometimes I can bait them to, like, look up in the air, right? We can go for this one and grapple off the high ground, but that's pretty much it. We don't have a ton of options, but I'd probably say that going up top is probably the most dangerous one, and probably not the one that you're going to want to take because it's the one with the least amount of cover. So from here, we can peek, shoot, and then back up if we miss, right? Whereas if we up on the high ground here, if we miss, we're screwed, right? We just have nowhere to go, right? Because there's no, whereas,
Yeah.
if we're up against any other character, right, we can, use this as cover. We can drop from the high ground. We can back up just because they won't be able to melt us as fast. But Widowmaker can one tap us, so there's not much we can do. So just again taking the obscure angles, making sure we're not revealing our position, right? Because now she knew, okay, she was expecting us to go there, right? Whereas that might be a lot better of a play if they just didn't even know that we were on a Widowmaker.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Right, again, we're not focusing the Widow first, so this kind of gets into the target priority. It's not the same target priority as last time. I think we're doing a lot better with that target priority. I haven't seen us do too much of just focusing tanks, right, which is what we would have talked about last time, right? Just
Yeah.
overly focusing them. I'm not seeing that at nearly as much, but the issue here is that we kind of get into more target priority where Widowmaker should be our number one target, right? Because like we just said, right, and because we don't go for her and she goes for us first, now she's alive, we're dead, and she just has free reign over everything, right? So we want to get her out of the way so we can start to do things, and that's just kind of what both of these last two fights have been. They're both being ruined over that one tiny little, one fact of the matter, right? It's kind of the same thing as last time when we had the wrong target priority. We're just our effectiveness is drastically reduced, whereas just by the little mistake of not knowing who to shoot at. Same thing here, that little mistake of not knowing to shoot at Widowmaker is basically got you killed twice in a row and meant that you've not really done anything, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so here we're coming out. Oh, very nice, we did it. Okay, so we finally got her out of the way. Now we free reign. We got some picks. Currently, we're 3-3. Unfortunate. He's 1 HP, so maybe we can like SMG him. Yep, retake the high ground. That's good. Very nice. Okay, so now that we're not dead and we're hitting shots, we're doing good, right? I don't think mechanics is a big issue for us. In fact, it looks like last time I didn't even have mechanics as a thing because I just made it target priority, right? So your mechanics are, decent enough to where, it's not even a problem that we need to work on. So but the issue is that we're dead or we're, like, there's things that prop up mechanics, right? When we're dead, obviously we can't shoot at things. When we're in bad positioning, we're not going to be able to shoot at the right things. When we're not being aware, we're not going to be able to shoot at the right things, and we're going to be making bad decisions. So there's a lot of things that prop up good mechanics to where, like, if you're pretty garbage at your mechanics and you are really good at the other things, you can be a decent Widowmaker even if you can't hit your shots. But if you're you have really good aim and garbage in the other areas, it is just not going to be propped up. You're going to be like, pushing against the wall, and you're not going to be able to get past just because you can't. You're always dead and you can't do things. So once we actually got the Widowmaker and we got the ball rolling, then we started hitting our shots. We killed Torb. We got the Ryan down to 1, right? So once Widowmaker's out of the way, we just were able to actually do things.
Sniper.
Woo!
Leave this to me.
Very nice shot.
No one can hide from my sight.
Honestly, say not the best timing. Typically, Sights is a very, very flexible ultimate, and it doesn't matter too much when you use it, but we probably don't want to be using it this early. any kills we get now really aren't going to mean anything because they're just going to respawn in like 3 seconds, right?
I probably should have waited till the Widowmaker respawned, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we probably should have waited until we are like basically sieging the next point because if you remember, when I believe it's when you're capping, right? When you're in the middle of capping this point, or no, what is it? Right after you cap, right? It's right after you cap the point when you get a kill. It's a 3 second respawn timer, right? So they're just going to be coming back instantaneously. So those kills don't really matter too much. So if we're trying to use our ultimate effectively, we probably want to be using it after we've capped point and roughly like in the middle of that respawn timer or after the respawn timer's ended. That way we can, actually, if we get kills, then it actually matters, right? So this doesn't really do a ton. And on top of that, like you said, it's going to be really useful in that Widow v Widow duel, so we probably want to have that active when the Widows respawn. So like here, let's say we get a kill, or let's see if we do get a kill.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
Okay, so now she has that, and we have to back up. Okay, so we killed 2 people, but notice that they're pretty much respawned. I guess, never mind, they had a normal respawn timer there. We shot up from the right side, it looks like.
Yeah.
Really the only thing there is just paying attention to our flank. We also stood still, make sure we're not standing still.
True.
Right, just constantly be strafing around 80-80, moving, standing still is gonna get you killed.
Cheers, love! The cavalry's here! I claim this objective!
Огонь по готовности! Fire at will!
So some of these times we're swapping the Tracer, just to make sure, are we swapping the Tracer to stay on Tracer or just swapping the Tracer to get back to the fight?
Just get back to the fight.
Then when we're doing that, which I don't have an issue with that, the big thing is that we don't seem to be paying attention to when the fight's probably most likely lost. So like right here, we have 4 people alive, but they have close spawns, which means that this is like, okay, maybe they're like even-ish. We have probably, because we're down people, that's a good chance that we're losing that. Once they get grabbed, I'd be like, all right, that's a lost fight. Because we don't really have, like, we see that they're grabbed, we hear it, we see them all clump up, they have close spawns, or they have a bunch of advantages there, and I'd probably be like, okay, that's probably lost, and then you see here in a moment that it is lost by the time we get there, like, we lose another, and then we're here in a moment we're going to lose another, and then we lose another, right? And then by the time we get there, there's no one alive, and then now we're just feeding them, feeding them extra ult charge, and we wasted any ult charge that we had. Like, we probably were like at 20%, and I've seen that happen like twice so far, where we kind of like just, we did the McCree on the last time too, and the last time was kind of similar, where we were like going back in when it was like already pretty much lost. So just pay attention to when you've won or lost those fights, so that you're not walking in when you've already lost them, right?
All right.
I guess real quick, let's just go over that real quick and go slightly more depth on it. Like, I don't think it's like a massive thing because we haven't seen it a ton, but just to get it out of the way. Actually, before we do that, I'm trying to think. Okay, let's do that real quick, and then after that, we'll do strengths and weaknesses, right? So real quick, just how to tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight, right? Telling that comes down mainly to kill feed, right? When you paying attention to who's alive, who's dead. When you are up 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage. When you have an advantage, you want to look to play more aggressively because you have less people to contest you. When you are up 2 to 3 people, that is a 1 fight. At that point, you can get super aggressive and look to push forwards to go and get kills. And you also no longer want to use ults because that'd just be overkill. This also goes the exact opposite way. When you are down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage, right? At that point, you didn't lose the fight, but you are losing the fight, so you might want to play a little bit more passive, right? And then when you are down 2 to 3 people, that is a lost fight, and you probably want to not use ults because that would just be wasting it, and then you want to look to get out if possible, or if not possible, you let them kill you, and also just don't walk into fights where you've already lost the fight, right? That's just not good as well.
Yeah.
So now there's also on top, like, so you heard as well that, like, I said 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3, and then 2 is the middleman. Now in that last fight we had it was a 4v6, right? Which meant that we were only down 2 people. Well, how do you tell if you've lost the fight or just are at a disadvantage, right? And when it comes to that, you get into the fact that there's a lot of other things that go into whether or not you've won or lost a fight. That's why 2 is the middleman. When you have basically, like, which team has more health, which team has better positioning, which team has more ultimates, more abilities, better closer spawns, right? A lot of things that go into it, and if they have any of those advantages, then it might be winnable still. So let's say in that last fight where we had 4 people alive, but let's say we had close spawns, right? Well, now maybe that's winnable. Or we have 4 people alive, but they're all 1 HP, maybe winnable. We have 4 people alive, but we're using a ton of ults, maybe winnable, right? So if you have an additional advantage, you can pull that back around. But if we don't have any advantage at all, then that means that we probably aren't gonna win that because we don't have any way to pull it back around. So if that means that, like, if you're coming into a fight and you're down 2 people immediately, you're probably not going to have an additional advantage, and then that means that the fight's pretty much lost from the beginning. So basically, that just means pay attention to all that stuff. I think it's like kind of twice we've walked back into fights that were lost, and we just kind of want to identify that.
Okay.
All right, and then. Alright, so then here probably would just be better that we let them kill us. Like, we were inside of them with no abilities, and here we probably could have just recalled and then walked back out this way, right? That probably is a good option. But on top of that, like we talked about, we want to, if we don't think we can get out, we want to let them kill us, because what ends up happening here is we stagger. Are you from? Yeah, you play the game a lot,
Yeah.
so you know what staggering is, right? And then that means that that's pretty bad for us. So we don't want to
I
do that.
wanted to switch off Tracer anyway too, so.
Yep, so just honestly here, the best decision probably to be just let them kill us, and then that would also get us back to spawns faster, which would let us swap, right? And
Okay.
getting out here, if we're trying to go back to swap 2, that would mean that we'd have to walk all the way back to spawn, right? Oh yeah, we're also gonna talk about strengths and weaknesses. My bad, I forgot. So ability usage. We talked a little bit about roll usage, talked a little bit about flash usage. Not insanely important though. And we've only seen a little bit of other characters on Widowmaker. I haven't seen us drop any Venom Mines, so make sure dropping our Venom Mines. Grapple, not too big of a deal with our grapple. And then Tracer, we haven't seen enough of her. So far, probably say like a low to medium priority to work on. Ultimate usage, we saw our sight, and then we saw one high noon, I think. Yeah, so the high noon was good. Sight's too early. Sorry, sorry, something happened there. So
Okay.
I'm back. So yeah, so far that's looking kind of like the same. Maybe I'd put that a little bit lower than our ability usage just because it's less. So I probably put no, we'll put it the same. We'll just put like low to medium priority, right? Kind of same-ish as ability usage. Mechanics, general mechanics fine as last time. Target priority looking a lot more solid, though we talked same kind of target priority thing, but just now it's shooting at Widowmaker and snipers, right, and kind of identifying that. And then that's really the only thing in the mechanics category. And then also McCree left click versus right click, right, using left click a lot more often than right click. And then on top of that, making sure that we are what was the other thing I was going to say? Making sure that we're just not taking random pauses, where sometimes we would just not shoot at shields on McCree. And then that's it. So that one is probably more so in the medium priority, right? Just kind of in the middle. Then positioning. Talked about a bunch of positioning things, like where we can stand better, how we adjust based off on what characters they're running. Making I don't think we've talked to I don't think we've had to talk about using cover properly a ton, so we're doing good there. I like that we're taking high grounds. Just sometimes those are in bad situations that we're taking high grounds. Make sure we're not accidentally dropping off of the high grounds when we shouldn't be. And then that one probably is again kind of go in the middle, like kind of medium priority. And then finally we get to awareness and the big boy awareness. This one's probably the highest. Tons of different things that go into it, right? From paying attention to team compositions and how we play against them, it being like one of the big ones. Paying attention to kill feed, to whether or not you've won or lost the fight, so we're not going back into fights that we've lost. Paying attention to, let's see, what are some other ones, like just general things like, where is their team at and where is my team at? So paying attention, the 2 times the Widowmaker and Soldier flanked us and we just didn't pay attention and then therefore we died. And then yeah, probably tons of other examples I'm just not immediately remembering. So just that probably puts it up pretty high. For now, we'll put it at like a medium high, though it might even be a high. Or not a high, just high, right? So that's kind of where we're putting that for now, and then that is pretty much it. So yeah, we'll just continue on now, and then we stay in Stagger. So that's not very good. So we're back on Widow. Just keep in mind, now they are on a Widowmaker themselves. Just keep in mind in general, because I know you play a couple different characters, so just letting you know, like, when different characters would be applicable is going to be something that's, useful things when you have a hero pool. Widowmaker's not as good on attack of second point on 2CP maps. Basically because one of the biggest things that Widowmaker's good at is getting picks, right? That's what Widowmaker's excels at, is she's really good at just getting that opening pick. So on a first point of a 2CP, that's actually really insane. That's really good, because on the first point of a 2CP map, their spawns are so far away that picks can make or break a fight, right? You get up people and you pretty much win it, right? Whereas second point, they have such close spawns that if you get a pick, they're gonna be back pretty like twice as fast, right? They're gonna be back so fast that your pick matters half as much, maybe even less than that. Right? It's just your pick doesn't matter as much, and they're gonna be respawning so fast that you have to get a lot more kills for you to be worth it on Widowmaker. So just keep that in mind, that Widowmaker is really good on first point of 2CP and not so great on second point of 2CP, and that's kind of how she works fundamentally as a character. So just keep that in mind. Now they are on a Widowmaker, and Widowmaker is good against Widowmaker as long as you're confident in the duel. And then Widowmaker is also decent against a Torbjorn because you can take out his turret. So this isn't a terrible time to be picking Widow. I'm just pointing it out. Well, make sure we're taking the time to line up our shots, right? That we're not rushing it, right? So we want to make sure. I think that was kind of something we touched on last time. If I'm looking at our notes real quick, is like just when something's standing still, when they're scoped in, when they're grabbed, shattered, slept, right? We intentionally go for the headshots. So here, when Widowmaker doesn't see us and she's just standing still with a scope, no excuse for missing that shot, because we have the surprise advantage. She has nowhere here. We can just line up that shot super easily. So make sure we're lining it up, intentionally going for the headshot, because we rush it just by a hair, and then she just ends up getting away, right? Or even killing us, right? Now we still get the kills, so that's good. We just, hopefully get that one tap going. Nice shot. Oh.
See that which is unseen. Don't worry, my friends. I am your shield. Let them out.
Okay, kind of same thing. She's expecting you most to grapple to top left and top right. So if we're trying to be unpredictable, we might want to peek like bottom left or bottom right. Are kind of the better angles to go for. So here, just for example, look at where, let's see where she's aiming at. I don't know. Okay, so she's aiming down here. So actually, I guess she is checking that out. But you can see like how it gives her kind of a warning, because she sees the grapple coming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could peek her from main where you have a shield. I mean, or you could peek bottom left. I mean, she was already pre-aiming bottom left. Though some widows might expect you to go top left, so they might already be pre-aiming there. Or at least, I probably said pre-aiming bottom left is that, or sorry, that is smart because then you can just kind of track them up. But yeah, that's just, a situation where we can just maybe don't need to go to that
Personne
spot.
n'échappe à mon regard.
So we make it out.
Could she see me when I walked back like that?
What do you mean?
Like when
to the
I
wall?
just turned around. No, like was I in her line of sight when I ran away from her?
Might have been. Yeah, probably.
Personne
I believe so.
n'échappe à mon
I think she like looked away. Yeah, so like I think
Okay, I see.
she stopped looking at you after you walked around. Or actually, no, she's back up there. So
No
you
one can
hid in the
hide
corner,
from my
and then she's
sight.
kind of like out of your line of sight while you ran away. Oh. Mr. Shot, also we reacted slightly slowly to the fact that she's up there, even though we can hear her grapple and her footsteps walking around up there. So, so far we've been kind of losing this duel for the most part. In which case, if you're losing the duel for the most part, that might be a situation again where you might want to consider swapping if you're not winning it. And because that's a big part of the Widow v Widow is winning the duel. Because if you're not, then you're just being dead most of the time.
Yeah.
So there we do go for an early grapple. I think it's just off of this bottom left one, which doesn't give us as much height, so therefore less time to react to it. Or less time to line up our shot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, see the difference. This fight, we
Yeah, I
go
took
for
my
the
time there.
exactly. We took our time, and we also we went for the Widowmaker first. The target priority. We went for the target we needed to kill first, and then therefore she's out of the way, right? Now we can probably take the high ground. Above us, yep, that's a good idea. Okay, aiming a little bit too low there. Make sure aiming head level.
Fiskult Privet. I am on fire. I will lead us to victory.
Objective A captured. New defense point. Objective B.
This is another good angle to which you can, kill the Widow from, right? Like, look at this. Right. So you're just coming this
That
left
would have
side.
been beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, like, this just becomes a predictable, or not, an unpredictable angle in which she probably won't expect you, right? This is why I said Widowmakers probably aren't going to be on the right side, right? You want to find those places where where in their heads they're thinking that, where they're going, okay, Widowmaker's probably not going to be here, and then you go, boom, I'm actually here, right? And then that way you get the surprise advantage, and we can
Yeah.
just tap the Widowmaker for free, and then after we get Widowmaker, maybe we can like grapple up to here or something like that, right? It's just, you want to mix it up, so this is good that we're coming down from over here. You just want to go for the Widowmaker first. Okay, we're eyeing her up, we're looking for her. There's a thing in the way, she's going around. Alright. Reacted a little bit slowly to the fact that she dropped and went around. Like, as soon as we don't see her there, we might want to like, okay, so let's see this again. So we see her, we saw her right there. Right, we kind of saw her like go over there, and we kind of like and then we're like, oh, where did she go? And then we kind of reacted slightly slowerly, so that 2-second delay in the reaction to the fact that she was behind us just gets our Hanzo killed, and then that itself possibly just ruins the push, right? So at the moment, probably want to be taking that, top angle, getting that good line of sight going here. Oh, nice shot. Yeah, so their positioning, I'd probably say, was just not the best. Like, instead of being bottom left now the Widowmaker's out of the way, we can grapple up to the top high ground, get more visibility over everything, be able to shoot more. Or even if we went main, this would probably also be a pretty decent idea, because we can one-tap body shot through this window here, so we don't even have to aim for head level. We can just aim for body level on people. And then we can also use shields and whatnot to keep ourselves alive, right? So just positioning.
Yeah.
Alright. Grapple. No, I mean, we might want grapple so we can take a high ground. Nice shot. Make sure paying attention to the respawns, right? Just that's another awareness thing is when you're up against other snipers, you want to be very like those like Hanzo's very similar to the Widowmaker in that he can kill us very easily, so we want to be very careful and aware of him. And we don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to pay as much attention to a Mercy respawning, or a Monkey respawning, or a Zarya respawning, or an Ana respawning, but when Widowmaker and Hanzo are dead, we want to be paying very close attention to when are they coming back out of spawn, because it's important information to know, because there you can see we die because we don't know he's coming out of spawn, right? If we know when he's coming out of spawn, because we just saw him toss a dragon from spawn, right? So we should know he's coming out of spawn, right? And then therefore we don't just scope and let him headshot us for free, right? And then that might even, instead of working as a disadvantage, where if we don't know they're coming, that works as a disadvantage to where we just end up dying for free. But if we can actually work it towards our advantage. And if we know they're coming, now we can get a free kill on them because we're watching them as they're coming out of spawn, and we can kind of just predict where they're coming from, right? And line up our crosshair and get good crosshair placement going. Again, little too early, right? Like we're just I'd say the fight's long way from happening. Like look how far away they are to where like it's not gonna be super useful for everyone. So look, they just kind of run away, and then half of our sights is up by the time we can shoot at anything, right? So just with the sights, they only like with any ultimate. Really, the big rule is just use it in any fight that's happening, right? When it's not won or lost, and when it's happening, it's not. You don't want to use it too early. The fight starts to happen and it begins when picks are being, getting flown around, when ultimates are being used, when the big one is when people are on top of each other. So when we're actually like close to each other and brawling, that's when fights begun. The fight didn't begin there, and then therefore it was just too early, and then just most of our ultimate was used by the time we ever got to shoot at anything, right?
Yeah.
So let's exit out there, go to the training range, and now we're gonna go over the main points. Do a quick review and then wrap up the session from there. So,
Sure.
let's see. We were on Widow and McCree and tiny little bit of Tracer, right? Or the main ones. So, let's see how this worked out. So, number one, gonna be awareness. Just a ton of stuff we wanted to pay attention to that we weren't paying attention to. We just want to make sure that we pay attention so we know what's going on around us. So a bunch of different things to pay attention to. First off, kill feed, right? Whenever we won or lost fights, just as a quick review, it's 1 to 2 is an advantage or a disadvantage. 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. And when you have won or lost a fight, you don't want to use ults. If you have won a fight, you want to get super aggressive to go and get stagger kills on them. If you have lost a fight, you don't want to stagger yourself, so you want to look to let them to get out if possible, and if you cannot get out, you want to let them kill you, right? Don't walk into fights that you have already lost, and make sure you're backing up if you have lost a fight, right? Now on top of that, pay attention to what are some other things? Pay attention to team compositions. We talked a lot about that. Team composition dictates playstyle. We talked about with the Doomfist, with the Widowmaker, with the I think there was like one other thing we talked about with that too, right? Just paying attention to those things so that we can kind of adjust our playstyle accordingly, right? So we're not getting caught off guard by them, and also just kind of combined with that, press tab regularly, right? That's another awareness thing, is just pretty much after every single fight, you should be pressing tab so you can see, when did they swap characters, who are they on, paying attention to some other tiny things that go along with that too. Your team ultimates, what characters did our team swap to, right? Pay attention to where is the enemy team at, where's my team at. We got caught off by flanks multiple times, or by Widowmaker and Soldier, and then therefore we died. And Hanzo, right, coming out of spawn. Pay attention to spawn timers. Just on the quick note of, team comp dictates play style, watch for flankers more if they're on flankers, listen, watch watch the left and the right. If they're on snipers, positioning changes, right? We play closer to cover, take obscure angles if you're a sniper, and if they're not on snipers and they're not on anything that can contest you at a long range, then we want to take wide angles where we can see as much as possible, right?
A masterpiece.
I think those were the main ones for awareness. Just a lot of things that added up. A lot of deaths happen because of a lack of awareness, and a lot of mistakes, right? Number two, let's see. Number two, trying to think through this. We talked about kind of positioning and mechanics being in the middle, I believe, right? So honestly, let's just tie those two, because they honestly, number one was like the biggest. It was like a 9 out of 10 importance-ish type of deal. Like there's the real important one, and then now we're kind of taking a step down to where maybe now we're down at like 6 out of 10 importance in these categories, right? It's just not as important with how much we need to work on them. Mechanics, make sure we're aiming head level, make sure that we're, with our target priority, really good on that, on improving on that. Just want to make sure now we're focusing the Widowmaker first when, when we're on a sniper duel, right? Not letting her kill us first, or revealing our position ahead of time. Then besides that, positioning, take obscure angles against the Widowmaker, make sure we're using cover properly, don't drop off of high grounds unnecessarily, make sure we're paying attention to our flank angles and changing our positioning accordingly. And then those are the main ones for that one. So moving on to kind of the bottom ones, which now these ones kind of like, go from that 6% or 6 out of 10 to probably down to like a 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10-ish, right? So, still things to work on, just not as important and as pressing. So ultimate usage and ability usage kind of tied for number 3 here, right? Ultimate usage just really was just Widowmaker sites, is just use them, don't use them too early, right? That was the big one, is just make sure we're not using them before the fight's begun, make sure we're using them when the fight's happening. And then abilities are going to be, like, honestly, ability then comes before ultimate usage, because ultimate usage isn't too, like, the big thing is probably super easy to fix, right? So honestly, you can put ability usage above it, but ability usage, make sure you're actually throwing Venomine. I don't know if I actually saw us throw Venomine once there.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so that's going to reveal people's positions, do some, like, if people are coming on top of you, that can do some extra damage to kill them. It just does some extra tiny little bit of damage, so, like, just anytime we're on Widowmaker, if they don't have flankers or someone's that's going to get on top of us, we're just going to kind of toss it in there just to reveal some positions so we can see where they're at, right? And then besides that, our McCree rolled for mobility, rolled to dodge. Then on top of that, make sure that we are using our flashbang. When we're flashbanging people who are on top of us, we are flashbanging the floor, not that shooting at them, so we can have it activate early. And then also just final thing on McCree is just make sure we're not right-clicking a ton, because we were like 80% right-click, and it should be the opposite, if not more the opposite, like 90% left-click, 10% right-click. It's just not going to happen as much, right?
What about when I am trying to burn a range shield? Should I be right-clicking or left-clicking?
Yeah, right-clicking if, like, that's the only thing to shoot at, right? If Reinhardt looks like he's... let's see, that one's a hard one to explain, because I'm not sure if I fully know. So, probably would say that if there's no one peeking and you don't have any line of sights on anyone, and so shield is the only thing you're worried about, then you would maybe right click up against it. But if there's people peeking side to side, you want to have left click, so you have ammo to spare. It's gonna be more accurate. Might be further away. You wouldn't want to right click like from a mile away against a shield, right? You'd probably want to left click just to be more accurate. And then those are the main ones. But yeah, against a shield, that's acceptable. But it's also just not going to be, shields aren't going to be something you're always focusing down as, per target priority, like we talked about last time. And then, that's the main things. All right. Any questions about anything we've talked about?
No, that makes sense.
All right. So then let me just stop the recording there then. So,